Call to order the regular meeting of the City Council, July 1st, 2014. Let the record show that all members are present and accounted for. We're opening the public session, so at this time, the City Council will convene to consider public matters. Those wishing to address the City Council must submit a completed request to speak form to the City Clerk prior to City Council action. Those request to speak forms are under the exit sign off to my left, your right. So feel free to fill those out if you want to comment on anything this evening. And tonight the invocation will be led by Pastor Steve DeNicola from Calvary Chapel, Foothill Ranch.
Would you bow your hearts with me as we open in prayer? Heavenly Father, I ask your blessing tonight upon all who are in attendance here, and especially upon those who serve the people of Lake Forest. Would you please bless the men and women on our City Council and all the many who support them in their vital role? Father, I pray that you would grant them encouragement, strength, peace upon their minds, and joy within their hearts. I pray for their families, for their marriage, for their children. Help them to be strong in the face of opposition, to be wise in the face of temptation, and Lord, to be filled with love in the face of division. And now, Heavenly Father, we pray for all those present tonight. May you grant each person wisdom to conduct the affairs of business and grace to understand all sides of the issues to be discussed tonight. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's real brief.
Real quick. Pastor Steve, it's been a long time since we've got together. Over 30 years, and I had to have you to come here before I could see you again because we've both been so busy. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. All right, tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Bass.
Okay, please stand, and as we say the pledge, please help to remember that what we're saying it for this great country. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, at this time, the City Council will recess for the purpose of conducting the Rancho Cañada Financing Authority business. Off to my left, your right, under the exit sign, that would be the agenda. That's the salmon color. And so I will call to order the regular meeting of the Rancho Cañada Financing Authority, July 1st, 2014. At this time, members of the public may address the Rancho Cañada Financing Authority regarding any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Rancho Cañada Financing Authority. No action may be taken on items not listed on the agenda unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, overall time limit of 30 minutes for the public comment portion of the agenda. Have we had any public comments?
We've had no requests.
Great. Then that would bring us to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the Rancho Cañada Financing Authority, the public, or staff request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Have we had any requests?
We've had no requests.
Okay, council members? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the consent calendar.
Second?
Motion and a second. Council members, cast your votes. And there's an abstention
Yeah.
from Councilmember Bass.
I wasn't present at that meeting. I
fair.
wasn't on the council.
Fair. So it's four in support of, one abstention from Councilmember Bass. And with that, I will recess the Rancho Cañada Financing Authority, or adjourn the Rancho Cañada Financing Authority and reconvene the City Council meeting to continue regular business. So that brings us to presentations. And I will entertain a motion for presentations.
So moved.
Support.
There's a motion and a second. Council members, cast your votes. Those items pass unanimously.
Agenda Item 1, proclamation to declare July as Parks and Recreation Month, submitted by Director of Community Services.
And do you have the proclamation? Or
I don't believe we do.
Well, I hereby proclaim the month of July to be Park and Recreation Month. So would our Director of Community Services like to make any comments?
Thank you. Yes, every year we celebrate the month of July as Park and Recreation Month. Public Works only get a week, but we get a whole month, so we plan on celebrating all month long. Thank you.
Well, and we kick off our celebration clearly with our fantastic 4th of July parade this Friday right in front of El Toro High School where it will start. So I encourage you out in the community, if you're not already involved, get involved either as a participant or as an onlooker. But one of the signature events that we have here in Lake Forest, we thank our Park and Recreation's department for what they do to put that on, and the many, many volunteers here in the community that spend a significant amount of time. It seriously starts in like February every year, so this is not just something that gets thrown together the last few weeks. So I encourage you all to get out there and watch it this 4th of July. And we're very excited about all the new parks that we have opening, the Baker Ranch Community Park that opened just a few weeks ago, the sports park that will open up this year that we've all been long awaiting for. So very, very exciting stuff going on in the Park and Recreation's department, and Mr. McGill does a fabulous job of leading that group of people. So thank you. We're so happy to recognize you, and you will get the official proclamation to display so prominently in your office, I'm sure.
Agenda Item 2, presentation by Southern California Gas Company on Advanced Meter Project, submitted by Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Thank you, and I'd like to introduce, while Public Works is working this month, we'd like to introduce the gas company. This is Paul Simons, our representative from the gas company. And he'd like to talk a little bit about the Advanced Meter Project that's ongoing in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, it's my pleasure to be with you this evening. I was before you a couple months back introducing myself as your new local public affairs manager, and tonight we are kind of rolling in a project that we're very proud of into the city of Lake Forest. And with me tonight is my colleague Juan Gonzalez. He's our project outreach project manager. So he'll take you through the presentation in just a moment, but I would like to just commend the staff of Lake Forest. They've been dynamite to work with. They've been I was explaining to Doug Erdman earlier, there are some staffs that I work with that just give us a rubber stamp, and that doesn't really do us much good because you end up with problems on the backside. And then some staffs just Dr. No, and that doesn't do us any good either. That makes life very difficult. Your staff has the city's best interest in mind. They challenged us along the way. They were fantastic, and I just thought I would share that with you all. They're a great group of folks. So again, I will turn the presentation over to my colleague Juan, who will take you through, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have afterward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak. Briefly, just want to provide you the basic information regarding our advanced meter project. As you can see, I'm holding one. I'll go one by one. Well, primarily, the California Public Utilities Commission approved in April 2010 authorized a $1.05 billion project where we were able to modify the way we read gas for our customers. And just to provide you information, Southern California Gas Company has 20,000 square miles of coverage from Visalia all the way to San Diego, Tijuana, Mexican border. So we cover a lot of ground. So in turn, what we're looking to modify is the way we read our customers' gas, allowing them the tools to become more the proper tools in order for our customers to make sound decisions in terms of energy efficiency, energy conservation, and energy consumption. Who better than our customers to know what is going on within their home or their place of business for them to make sound decisions so that they can save money in turn. So we're looking to modify automatically read securely. This is a one-piece, one-way communication device where we're able to obtain the information of your gas usage at home and or at your place of business. This MTU runs on 2 AA batteries, a fraction of a second, 4 times a day for no more than 2 minutes a year. A fraction of a second, 4 times a day for no more than 2 minutes a year. So we're able to capture that information and provide and relay on a next-day basis to our customers the information of their usage on their smartphone and or computer. Runs on 2 AA batteries. From the information we've obtained, these batteries have a lifespan of 20 years. on 2 AA batteries. Primarily, we're able, if there's any misinformation or something we're not capturing, we're able to then have our staff go and make a modification. But one of the important elements of this is the notion of privacy. With this modification being done and upgrade within our system, we will, on a minimal level, won't have the need to go into our customer's home to check on the meter. We'll receive those meters, the meter readings, into our system, and then our customers on a next-day basis can get that information. Important tool, again, Southern California Gas Company trying to modify our environmental concerns. It's 1,000 vehicles off the road, 240 tons of CO2 now being emitted. So we're doing our part in order to modify our environmental concerns. As you can see in on the frame, the gas meter reads the information. It goes to our data collection units, then into our main headquarters, and then transfer the information again back to the smartphone and our computer. One important element, the Southern California Gas Company, we're all keeping everything in-house. One of the questions that we generally get, so what's going to happen to your gas meters, guys? The people going out and reading. All those folks, I'm happy to report, they're staying within the company. They're being retrained. A lot of them have now become part of the installers. We've not outsourced the work. It's all been done internally, and a lot of our gas meters are doing the actual modifications or moved into other positions within our company. So we're very proud of that. They're keeping everything in-house. As you can see, this is what our data collection unit will look like. We have some in different locations within your city, which will capture the information of the gas users throughout this particular community. And that's the general zone. It's 16 data collecting units being indicated concurrently for this particular city of Lake Forest. And with that, I will now 11 DCUs, new DCUs in this community. And is there any attachments? And 5 attachments to existing poles within the city of Lake Forest. And with that, I'd like to present, again, if any questions, ask Paul Simons to come up, answer any questions you may have for us. Thank you once again for giving us the opportunity to speak.
Great. I think Councilman Voights has a question.
I guess my first question is, are those batteries available at Costco?
We can't even get access to them, so no.
20-year lifespans for the AA? A lot better than my Duracells.
And again, primarily that is because, again, it's a fraction of a second for no more than 2 minutes a year.
Okay, is that the actual size?
Yes.
And the transformers, there's 6 responders that are going throughout the city?
16, sir.
16.
16, yes.
And do those have radio frequencies or anything? Obviously, people are concerned about that kind of stuff now, and so just so I can answer the people's questions.
So we transmit, as Juan indicated, from the meter, less than 2 minutes per year. It is a radio frequency signal. It's a 450 megahertz band. If you compare that to the output of a standard cell phone, it's about 1 million times less radio frequency than your standard cell phone. I also like to point out it's about 4,000 times less than your standard baby monitor. So the output is very, very minimal from the meter itself. The data collection units are erected 25 feet in the air, and the transmission, we are partnering with AT&T and Verizon, so it's nothing more than a cell call from the data collection unit back to the gas company.
Okay.
All right.
Is that that the actual unit?
So, yes, Councilmember Voights, you'll notice that the gray addition to the meter,
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, so the installers go to the existing meter, they pull off this face, they slide in this radio device, and put the face back on. So all this radio does is count how many times knobs turn as gas flows through the meter. We're not changing out all 6 million meters in our service territory, just simply adding a radio device. And so the installation takes about 5 or 10 minutes, and this is the size.
So emergency shutoff for gas leaks and stuff's all the same?
All the same.
The same.
Yeah. And that's a really important point. There's no automatic shutoff with this capability. There's no two-way communication. Information leaves the meter. Nothing comes back in. Meters are not communicating with other meters. The meter sends a signal to the data collection unit. And to your point, there is no automatic shutoff with this technology. All of that remains the same as it is today.
On a different note, does gas company offer any kind of training to or like emergency or cities that for shut off during earthquakes and stuff? How do you shut that off?
Yeah, we do that all the time. Actually, we do that annually. We meet with our emergency responders. Well, I guess two points to that question. We do meet with emergency responders each year and just kind of go over just basic emergency procedures as it relates to residents and how folks can turn gas off at their home. All that information is available on our website at SoCalGas.com.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilman Bass?
I just have one. What power is the DCU units?
Yeah, it is solar powered, actually. Those that are attached to standalone or new poles, there's a solar panel attached to that. Those that are attached to existing poles, we just tap into the power at the existing pole. That's a partnership we have with Southern California Edison, and so we have that agreement worked out.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
This brings us to the public comments portion of the agenda. At this time, members of the public may address the City Council regarding any action within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. No action may be taken on items not listed on the agenda unless authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person, and an overall time limit of 30 minutes for the public comment portion of the agenda. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter, whether or not it appears on this agenda, is requested to complete a request to speak form available off to my left, your right, under the exit sign there. The completed form is to be submitted to the city clerk prior to an individual being heard by the City Council. Do we have any council comments on non-agenda items?
Yes, Your Honor. Marcia Rudolph, followed by Joe DiMaculangan.
You know how many we have in total?
10.
10. Okay.
Good evening, one and all. This is my melancholy public comments. We get into the month of June and July. We've had 2 officers who were killed in the line of duty. One, Steve Parsons, was a motor officer in Laguna Hills. And the other one, Brad Riches, I think a lot of you will remember that he was slaughtered outside the 7-Eleven. I think it's important that we remember the officers who went down at in the line of duty. If nothing else, it reminds us that when we see an officer on a motorcycle or in a squad car or whatever, just a really quick, stay safe kind of thought, I think is appropriate, because we don't want to have any more funerals, and because that means that the city has lost an officer, the county has lost an officer, our department has lost officers, and we don't need to have that, and of course their family is short that officer. So, in your prayers tonight, Steve Parsons and Brad Riches. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe DiMaculangan, followed by Victor Scheer.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to have this time to present. I'm a homeowner resident in our wonderful city of Lake Forest. I'm in the middle of a driveway expansion project, and my project has been put to a halt due to a code violation, which I'm still trying to understand. According to Department of Planning, that it's an aesthetics issue. So I have with me a petition that I personally went to my neighbors in my community to ask them permissions if they had any objections to my driveway expansion, as well as before and after photos of my home, which I purchased. And, the whole point of aesthetics, it's my home, I'm vested, I want my property value to go up, as well as my community and the surrounding communities for the city. And I really don't see how my current project would hinder that or cause any type of an issue with regards to aesthetics. And again, I may be misreading the code violations, but I ask your permission to look into my case and to see in if at all possible, my continuation and completion of my project for my home. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm not sure if staff's aware, but I would assume that if, have you heard from a staff member already, or you just received the code violation? Okay.
Yeah, I just received the code violation.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sure that staff will track you down and try to find a way to talk to you about the issue further. So
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
Victor Scheer, followed by Stephen Berger.
Thank you. I'm Victor Scheer, a longtime resident, having moved in the Saddleback Valley in 1983. And I'm here today to comment on our police services, on our contract that recently was approved. I am very thrilled that we have such an excellent program in our community for community safety through our contract with the Sheriff's Department. And I wanted to comment how important that is to our community as being one of the safest communities that we have here in South Orange County, and will continue to do so. As a matter of fact, in the Orange County Register Sunday edition, where they publish the real estate activity, Lake Forest is scored in the top 4 of real estate home sales, which is a strong indicator of the growth of our area and the vibrant business and community support that we have. Of the 73 zip codes, Lake Forest 92630, including Foothill Ranch, has demonstrated a strong growth of attracting new residents to our area and new businesses. And I'm very excited about the future of our community with the sports park coming online in the fall. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Stephen Berger, followed by Eric Garrettson.
Good evening, all. Mayor Robinson, Mayor Pro Tem Nick, and the rest of distinguished council members and staff. My name is Stephen Berger. Some of you may remember me. I'm the attorney for Adam Nick, Sherry Nick, and Adam Nick and Associates in the case known as Nick versus the City of Lake Forest and 7-Eleven, involving the issue over the alcoholic beverage license for the 7-Eleven store at Regency and Lake Forest Drive. Mr. Nick did not know I would be coming here today. This was decided between co-counsel Joshua Kaplan and myself, because we felt it was important for us to state publicly and for the record certain pertinent facts about the status currently of the Nick versus City of Lake Forest and 7-Eleven lawsuit.
Mr. Berger, could I just for a second, and Mr. Mayor, the council has no ability to discuss this matter, much less to vote on it. Yet, just in abundance of caution, I'd suggest that because it involves Mr. Nick, that he consider recusing himself, listening to the conversation, but making it clear for the audience that there's no participation occurring.
Well, Mr. Smith, I would object to that. Mr. Nick, this is a public comment. Mr. Nick did not know I was coming here today. This is totally with me, and my comments are for the public, including Mr. Nick. But if you feel it's important for him to recuse himself, so be it.
If I were you, I wouldn't want him up there, so that would be my advice, yeah. It's certainly up to him.
Allow me to ask this question, Mr. Smith. Is the recusal up to me, to you, or to Mayor Robinson?
It's ultimately up to you, Council.
Then I'm not going anywhere. Thank you.
I will say that Mr. Kaplan and I have observed a strict Chinese wall between Mr. Nick's status and functions as a city councilman and his status and function as an individual who has every right to sue like every other individual and citizen of this country, which he has done. This battle commenced 4 years ago, in about May 2010, with the issuance of a PCN to 7-Eleven for the aforementioned 7-Eleven location directly across the street from Mr. Nick's gas station and convenience store. To this day, 7-Eleven does not have a license for alcoholic beverage sales. They have a conditional license. The prior Lake Forest City Council issued that PCN, the Letter of Public Convenience and Necessity, improperly, in direct violation of the city's Resolution 9842, which said that a PCN could be issued under the standard of public convenience and necessity. And necessity, not public convenience or necessity. The Planning Commission affirmed the issuance of the PCN by Ms. Ackerman strictly on the condition that it was or convenience, not and convenience. And they issued that in direct violation of Resolution number 9842. No reason was ever stated for that. They just did it. Now, the Court of Appeal has issued a writ of review. Those are very rarely issued. They were issued here. The briefs are pending. We are awaiting a brief from the state of California. What I want to know and what I don't understand is why the city is authorizing money to fight 7-Eleven's battles. This is 7-Eleven's fight, not the city of Lake Forest. 7-Eleven is a multi-million-dollar corporation, if not a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They can fight their own battles. They're politically influential. They're wealthy. They're very powerful. The city of Lake Forest should not spend one more penny fighting Mr. Nick. That is unfair competition if that's what this case is all about. Mr. Nick is fighting the state of California, the ABC, the city of Lake Forest, and 7-Eleven. And I think city of Lake Forest should bow out. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Eric Garrettson, followed by...
I had a question. Yes.
I'd rather just no questions at this time, so I'm just going to take mayoral authority here. So,
Whatever.
I appreciate that. If you want to make some comments, you can make them at the end in your council comments, but I don't want to have any questions
Very well.
amongst...
Mr. Bass, my number is a matter of public record. You're certainly welcome to call me anytime. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mayor. Are you saying that we have to take and use our council comment time in order to address when the state law says that we can briefly address when a person come up to the mic and say something that we need further information or we need to give them a point that the state law, in fact, it was brought along by you or Nick, says that we have that right. Are you taking that right away from us? It's given to us legally by the state law?
The state law does allow, but our own rules say that everything goes through the chair. So I'm the chair, and I'm just
Well, then we need to
exercising
appeal it to the state, because we had this for years when I first came aboard. We had some council member here that would shut two of us down all the time. You see that head shaking out there? Because he was here. And they stop us repeatedly. And some of the legislators that we went to, they said, that's not right. And you do have the right to make a brief comment or ask the question. Now, you're saying you're saying that a mayor can trump the state law, and you can decide to not allow him to speak and ask what he has to say, because his name is not mentioned on that lawsuit, but all the former city councils and these two here, we're mentioned on that lawsuit. So you're going to say that we cannot say anything when our attorney has came up here and viewed himself and stated that we're doing something wrong, when by the state law, when we are being sued as a city, and it names individually the councils, and at one while they even had the staff on there, then we are allowed to say something. He's not even mentioned in the lawsuit. Scott and myself didn't ask, but by state law. And if we need to go to the FPPC or the state law to say that we need that right, that's why that was put in there to begin with, because many of the mayors were shutting people out and not allowing them to respond or ask. So now you're going to go back to where that battle we fought years ago and say he can't say nothing. That's not right. That's not right. That is not right.
I'm just going to abide by our own rules that just say everything goes through the chair.
But our rules cannot trump the state law, just like the state can't trump the federal law. And that's one thing that's, I'd like a ruling from our city attorney on the state law.
Mayor, if I could, Mayor and Council, I think the state law, it is permissive. It says council members may comment in response. The protocol that you described, Mayor, allowed council members to provide a brief response, but to do so at the end of the meeting in connection with council member comments. And so I think they can be harmonized under the order that you issued as parliamentarian.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments, but I just want to move on to, we've got a lot of public comments tonight, and we're just allowing the public to speak at this point, and so. I would not. Thank you very much for your time.
I asked our attorney. Thank you, though.
Eric Garrettson, followed by Kenton Betcher.
Good evening, members of the City Council, Mr. Mayor.
Check further.
I come for you. I used to work at Conway Freight. 4 years ago, I was seriously injured on the job. I've come before you a couple times requesting that medical marijuana dispensaries become available in the city. Right now, that's about my only choice of employment. I've suffered tremendously, and I still have to go to Santa Ana to get my medicine. What I propose is not a pot store, but a medical marijuana store based exactly on the one that was allowed to stay in operation in Santa Ana that's currently working with the city of Santa Ana. One of the big things that we have to deal with is probably in 2016, marijuana will become a recreational drug available to everyone in the state. I think we should come up with ways to work with, especially the police department, schools, etc., come up with a way that our city can deal with this, gain revenue from this, but do it in a way that is going to benefit the city and keep it in the great state that the city's in. I'm glad I'm a resident here. But I would like to meet with the city council privately, go over a plan that I think everyone, including the police department, would find very acceptable. Would that be acceptable to the city council?
It's not something we can take action on in public comment here.
I'm asking you if I can have a meeting with the city council to discuss this privately.
You can't have a meeting with the entire city council. There's brown.
Well, I've tried to get a hold of you, Mr. Mayor. You told me to contact you prior to your election for the last year and a half, and you've refused to respond to any one of my phone calls, even to the city. What do I have to do to get heard in the city so I can open up Medical Marijuana Collective? That is a nonprofit. The city will also benefit by donations from the collective.
I will respond.
Thank you.
Kenton Betcher, followed by Bob Holtzclaw.
Hello, good evening. My name is Kenton Betcher. I'm sort of leading the charge with the Lake Forest Garden Park. And at the 4th of July parade, we had 5,000 cards that you're getting printed up. We have it all over the web. Because as we followed along with the city, when we started this, we were rather naive, and we still are. We're just citizens. We don't know the process. And today I got an email saying that the capital improvement budget, which we were asked to show up on July 15th at the city council meeting, has been changed to August 9th. So the cost, everything, people have given up their vacations. There's nothing we can do but pass them out. And we will still show up on July 15th and speak in public comment. And the process is, everybody has been wonderful in the whole process. I view it as a system glitch, and that's hard for some people to understand. That's not some conspiracy theory to stifle public comment or anything like that. But I'm the type of person, if you're given a truckload of lemonade, or lemons, make the best lemonade within your abilities. And so that's why I'm here tonight, to ask if you could, at the end of the meeting, I know that you can have agenda items put on the next meeting, and have the capital improvement budget discussion put back on July 15th, but as people talk in their public comment, just an indication that it's not really formulated, and it's actually going to be put off to the August 15th or August 5th meeting, and thank them for their attendance, and most will probably not show up. But we're at the point we have no choice but to show up and speak in public comment, because everything is already put out. So I'd ask your indulgence if, just as a courtesy to all the people who've taken their time and changed their vacations to attend that meeting, could at least have make their wishes known in comments, and we'll take a little bit of a rough situation and hopefully smooth it out that it's a win-win for everybody. So that's why we're here. And I want to thank you for all of your indulgence. It's been a really good experience. From meeting people, it's been a learning experience from my standpoint, and so we'd like to just keep pushing forward if we could. So I thank you so much, and I'll probably see a lot of you at the parade.
Bob Holtzclaw, followed by Jim Reichert.
I'll make mine faster than Jim's. My name is Bob Holtzclaw, and I live here in Lake Forest since 1975. I have just a quick thing here. I was at the Planning Commission last month, and the big debate there was approval for alcohol for a chain store. And, really at the time there, they have no guidance on anything like this. Evidently, we're a government. We run on rules, regulations, building setbacks. We have everything, set up for these people to rule on. Alcohol is kind of like, well, it's a rule of thumb. If you want more there's 2 areas where they want to build. There's already oversaturation in there. It's really the responsibility of this city council to regulate how many stores can have beer and wine, how many stores should have hard alcohol in those areas. And so we have some sort of guidance for this planning commission. What we have right now is kind of a mishmash. And besides that, the city council here just voted down about 4 or 5 months ago a mom and pop store in that very same area for a liquor license. But it's been pushed to the Planning Commission because, I don't know, I'm not saying anything, but this is a chain store, big business. And does that make any difference? It shouldn't. It's a regulation that we should have the same thing for everybody. I remember one of the planning commissions there, the person, she's waving her arms back and forth, anything goes if it's legal, we should build it and stuff like this. That's not how our government is supposed to work. We have, like I said, we have rules and regulations. And before this goes back to the Planning Commission, you should be responsible to making those rules first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Reichert, followed by Jim Gardner.
I bet mine's going to be shorter than his. Jim Reichert, I'm a Lake Forest resident. I just have a concern. Police Services does a great job, and as Marcia mentioned, they risk their lives providing us services, and you just approved their budget, which was fine. But Laguna Hills, I don't know if you saw this article a couple of weeks ago in the Saddleback Valley News, that Laguna Hills, their police services budget is now 40% of their general fund expenditures. They laid off 2 deputies, and it keeps going up and up and up, and they're trying to figure out how do we get this down. In Lake Forest, when we became a city and we talked about police services and what our budget would be, it was estimated at 25-26%. I think it was that in the beginning. In 2007, police services budget was $10,315,000, 36% of general fund expenditures. Last year was $13,300,000, 38% of the general fund expenditures. And this coming year, it's going to be $14,300,000. So that's a $4 million increase for basically the same level of services in 7 years. And what's it going to be in the future? Is it going to be 50%, 45%? And every dollar of that, I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but every dollar of that is money we can't spend on something else. So I don't have a solution. It's a tough problem, but obviously another city has the same concern, and I think probably the other cities that are serviced by the Sheriff's Department have the same budget concern, and maybe one option might be to look at options for services from somewhere else. South County Sheriff's Department, partner with Irvine, whatever it may be. Again, it's not a criticism of the Sheriff's Department. You guys do a great job, but that money's going up and up and up, and it's basically the same services we get, and it's pensions and health care that's going up, and when's it going to end, and what percent of our budget 10 years from now is going to be for police services? 50%? And what are we going to have to give up, and are we going to have to cut down police services because of that? So that's my concern. Again, not a complaint. You guys do a great job. Don't pull me over and give me a ticket because I said this. But you do a good job. So just a concern I think we need to look at long term. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say that there is information sharing that's going on between all of the cities right now about this issue. So,
Jim Gardner.
Good evening. My name is Jim Gardner. I live in Lake Forest, and I'll bet I'm going to be longer than anybody else. A few weeks ago, Councilman McCullough gave some comments about her travel expenses behavior, and I just happened to have her last 7 reports on my desk because I have no life. And I went through them, and this is an analysis of what she said and the reality. You have a copy of it in front of you. Mrs. McCullough says she doesn't ask for gas reimbursement. Well, that's not true. She almost always asks for gas reimbursement. You have the figures right there in front of you. Mrs. McCullough says we are allocated $50 a day. Well, that's not true. In fact, you're not allocated any limit. In fact, Mrs. McCullough often goes over $100 a day just in food costs alone. So it's not true that you're allocated $50 a day, which is what you told us. As a public official from the dais, this is what you said, and I'm now comparing that with what you did. Mrs. McCullough says she takes city money and reimburses her husband for the taxes he should be paying as a way of paying him back for the bottled water and snacks. What she doesn't tell you is at the same time she's charging the city for the bottled water and the snacks. All that data is sitting there right in front of you. She says that's the only expense she asks the city to pay for him. But in fact, she asks the city to pay his share of the tips. All that information is sitting there in front of you. Mrs. McCullough says she goes, this one I love more than the others, I guess, if you could love any of these. She says she goes all day long and doesn't eat anything, just drinks some water, some nuts, some raisins. Sometimes she works from 6 in the morning until 12 or 1 at night working for the city. We should have had Donna Summers working hard for the city. Well, that's not true either. As a matter of fact, Mrs. McCullough never goes a day without eating, according to her receipts. Sometimes, in fact, she eats 4 times a day on the city's budget. Do I care how often she eats? No. Do I care how often her husband eats? No. Do I care if she gets gas reimbursement for the city? No. None of us care about that. What I care about is that you sit there as a public official sitting on the dais and you lie to us. And this isn't the first time I've caught you in lies about whether or not the grand jury said we were a great city, or whether or not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These things go on and on. I do not feel it's appropriate, and I've called many of the rest of you out on this. I do not feel it's appropriate for a public official to sit there and lie to the public. So I would ask all of you, in the future, if you're going to say something, you need to be damn sure that what you're telling us is the truth. Thank you very much.
do we have any more?
There have been no further requests.
So that will bring us to the consent calendar warrant register, item number 3. All matters listed under the warrant register are considered routine and will be enacted by one vote. There will be no separate discussions of these items unless members of the City Council, the public, or staff request specific items to be removed from the warrant register for separate action. Have we had any requests from the public?
We've had no requests.
Okay. Council members, any items you need to pull from the warrant register?
Move the item.
Motion. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the warrant register. Council members, cast your votes.
Wait. On that, I do want to abstain from one item on that. It's the payment to the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority, the amount of $801,124.
Okay.
Purpose of that abstaining is that I did retire from that agency, and so it's a source of retirement income for me.
Okay. All right. So we'll take that with that abstention on that one item.
Call for the vote?
I did. So, but call for the vote. I did. Sorry. That item passes with the abstention from Councilman Bass. That brings us to the consent calendar miscellaneous items, numbers 4 through 19. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the City Council, the public, or staff request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Have we had some requests from the public?
Yes, item 6 and item 14.
Item 6 and 14. Okay. And council members?
Your Honor, item 6, please.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Move the remainder.
Support.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Council members, cast your votes. Those items pass unanimously.
Agenda item 6, adopt ordinance 261, the regulation of professional lobbying activities by elected city officials submitted by city clerk and removed from the consent calendar by a member of the public. Jim Gardner.
Good evening again, Mayor, my name, staff, council, Jim Gardner, I live in Lake Forest. I have no opposition to this particular ordinance in general, but I don't think it's the problem. I don't think the problem is that we're worried about you going somewhere else and lobbying other people. Personally, and I know many other people, I can think of at least 4,000 off the top of my head, people who are more worried that the lobbyists are coming here and lobbying you. Instead of passing an ordinance, or maybe I should say, in addition to passing an ordinance which prohibits you from going there, maybe we should tighten up on what happens when people come here. When lobbyists come here and give you tens of thousands of dollars, and then you turn around and you vote to give the lobbyists, the businesses, what they asked for. Now, Mayor Robinson, with all due respect, you say that's your right. It's your right to take their money, and it's your right to give them your vote. I don't know. It may not be illegal for you to do that. I think that's true. But I think most of us would say that's a questionable moral practice. I think even the city's code of ethics says that's not okay. So by all means, let's go ahead and pass this. It's harmless. I'm not against this. But I think the real problem is tightening up on the lobbying that happens here and the influence of external people buying or influencing your votes. I'm much more worried about that than I am about you going to Orange and lobbying the people in Orange. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. I'll bring it back to the council.
Move the item.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, so I'll open it up for discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Knight.
Thank you. My first inclination is to put this in a broader context. However, that will end up boring some of you. To say as briefly as I could, this is only part of what would have been a more major, comprehensive code of ethics that I tried to introduce. However, that did not get anywhere. For those who are interested, I tried to introduce what the city of Irvine has. They refer to it as Measure H. It is a very robust code of ethics, the best that I could find in California, in fact. One of the many good things about that Measure H in the city of Irvine is that it was actually put on a ballot. The people of Irvine passed it, which means future councils cannot reverse it, cannot adjust it, cannot modify it, cannot do anything to it. My original goal remains to be today. Hopefully in the future I will be able to reintroduce it. My goal was and is to introduce or reintroduce that, put it on the ballot at some point in the future. It won't be on the next ballot, maybe the following one. so that you get to vote. I think each and every one of you who cares about Lake Forest would be impressed and would be happy to vote yes. It is a robust, clear-cut code of ethics, the best that I could find in California. That said, this item 6, is a small part of that broader context. It is before us tonight, thanks to no one but the gentlemen who are sitting to my immediate right and left. They helped me bring it up to here, and as such it is before you tonight, namely Mayor Robinson and Councilman Bass. That said, I thank both of them. Also, Section 2.18.103, restrictions on elected city officials who are lobbyists. There are 2 exceptions here, which actually go to make the restriction ineffective. So what I would like to do, and I can read the text to you, but I won't take your time. All I want to do is I want to take, it basically accepts that there are 2 exceptions here that essentially allow what has been going on on this council to perpetuate, which goes against the intent of this ordinance. So what I would like to do is I would like to once again look to my colleagues so that we can have tonight, not as the second reading, but as the first reading of the new ordinance, one identical to this, however, one without the 2 exceptions. Nobody should be above the law, and nobody should be accepted from this ordinance. The fact that I sit here and I'm a council member, that's not a good enough reason why I should not be held to this ordinance. I think everybody should be held to it, period. As such, Mr. Smith, I look to you to help me from this point forward. If you want to recap what it is I'm referring to, do I need to read this, the red line portion? What do I need to do?
Mayor and Council, because this is a reading of the
Yes.
ordinance, then the concept is on the table, but the council will need to know the exact text of
Okay.
what you might amend.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'll read that then. Section 2.18.103, restrictions on elected city officials who are lobbyists. It reads, because of their uniquely important, visible, and elevated status and responsibilities as office holders, an elected city official shall not engage in compensated employment or service for the purpose of lobbying for any private person before any local public agency, county, city, or special district, all included, located in the county of Orange. And person, for the purpose of this context, is purpose for the purpose of this context, person means any individual, business entity, trust, corporation, association, firm, partnership, committee, club, etc. So if you hear person, don't be alarmed. Person actually includes all of the above. This is perfect, as it is. However, it further reads, this section shall not apply to a person's lobbying, and this is the part that I want taken out, as an in-house employee on behalf of his or her employer, as opposed to a client of the employer. Nor shall it apply to lobbyists in service of clients who retained the lobbyist on a matter or project before another agency prior to the date of their filing for candidacy or appointment to the office in the city of Lake Forest. So basically, it gave us a whole, it gave us a good promise, and then towards the end, it took away what it gave. Where do I take it from here, Mr. Smith?
Well, Mayor and Council, that's fine the way it is. There was a question that was raised during the week leading into this about where does that leave an exception in the state law that allows a person with a council member with a conflict of interest to represent himself or herself individually from the other side of the dais. And what I would suggest, this may go without saying, is that if the council is inclined to adopt this provision and include an exception for persons lobbying in the same manner as any other member of the general public to represent himself or herself on a matter which is related to his or her personal interests as permitted under the California Political Reform Act of 1974. I think that may go without saying, but I would suggest that if you do adopt the proposed amendment, you make it clear that the exception under state law would also apply under this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I just want everyone to know that we are hopefully taking something out. What we're putting back, what we're putting in, does not give any autonomy of any form, shape, or kind, except it mirrors the state law, which we don't have any control over. So, yes, we are taking out what I want taken out. The part that Mr. Smith read, which is right here in front of me, which I should have actually continued reading, it is merely word for word what the state law says. So we're not, we are taking away the exceptions. We are not introducing any exceptions. We are just pointing out what the state law says. At this point, would I go to see if I can get a second, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, that could be a substitute motion, looking for a second.
I'd like to make a
adopt
point
it
of
tonight.
clarification. As elected officials for the city of Lake Forest, our job is to lobby for our city. And I actually work for the State Assembly. I work for State Assemblyman Don Wagner. My job is partly to lobby for Assemblyman Wagner. So the fact is that you guys wanting to add or take out more than what's necessary that's already down here that we have agreed upon, I think that it would be endangering the right for us to represent the city.
Mayor and Council, if I could, that's a good question. We just had a little bit of time to think about this. I'd call your attention to the preceding section.
Are you arguing the point for Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I was going to answer your question, Councilmember Voights. The exception up above, which is, you go to the definition of lobbying, that's E, and then there are exceptions to the definition of lobbying. And number 2 is when a public official, that would be council members, or a public employee, that would be you, Councilmember Voights, when you're acting as an official or employee of the city. I'm sorry, let me just read it.
I think
you're not lobbying.
It's vague and ambiguous, and how the way I look at it. And the fact is that we're all losing our freedoms. And the fact is that I just feel like this is an intrusion upon the freedom that I have as a representative for the city of Lake Forest and for my boss, the State Assemblyman Don Wagner.
You may not be comfortable with that exclusion, and that'd be up to the council.
Mr. Smith, if I could beg of you, Mr. Voights interrupted you. Please read that so he understands for himself that he can continue doing what he does. This does not preclude him from doing anything that he has done or anything he will be doing. Please read that text to him once again.
Mayor,
if you wouldn't mind reading it one more time, I think that the councilman's entitled to his position, which is that it's vague and because it doesn't clearly spell it out. But I'll let you read it one more time.
Here it is. Made by a public official or employee, including but not limited to an official or employee of the city, acting in his or her official capacity. So that would be the exception that might apply. But again, that's up to the council members individually decide if your comfort levels are with that.
So it's theoretically possible that, well, I mean, it's fair that Councilman Boyds may have that position. We have a motion and a second right now. There's a substitute motion. So just in my own comments, and then I'll go to Councilman Bass here. I think that there's probably some ambiguity here. There is some vagueness in the language. This is something that I would like to see us come to some consensus on if we possibly can. And so my suggestion would be that we might want to take this back, talk about it today, take it back, and then bring it to us again shortly, maybe within the next meeting or two for a first reading, trying to incorporate some of this discussion here, just so that we can clarify some of the concerns that there are. But like I said, I'm going to go to Councilman Bass. And then
He turned it off. I turned my on.
Turn it off because you talk.
Oh.
One of the things that I heard in the reading of this is that there was, you provide a further definition of a private person. Is that correct, what that means? Okay.
It provides a definition.
Okay. As I understand it, this is second reading. So the choice we have is either adopt it as is. If we have a change to it, then we go back to kind of square one to first reading and discussion. Is that correct?
Those are the options, yeah.
Okay.
And then Councilwoman McCullough, and then I'll come to Mayor Pro Tem Nick.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand what you read, but I have a may here. Could you give me a more clarity on that, please?
Councilman, you're going to have to point me to
In
that.
reference to the state regulations concerning it, and in reference to what is being proposed.
All right. The part that would remain unchanged is subsection 2 to the definition of lobbying. So there's a definition of lobbying in E. Do you see where I am?
Yes, I'm with you.
It's subsection 102E. And then at the end of that page, it says the terms lobby or lobbying do not include a communication. The number 2 is made by a public official or employee acting in his or her official capacity.
Okay, now, that's what we have as of now. This is what Mayor Pro Tem Nick is referring to.
Except that that section would remain unchanged.
He wants that unchanged.
Right.
Now, what does that is according to the state law, right?
I don't know whether that's provided for in state law or not, but it was in the model that the council asked us to employ.
Mayor, my problem is that our city attorney just made a statement that I thought I heard a little earlier, almost the exact statement, is that he's not sure if this is in reference to the state law and what's not. As we all know that when it comes to state law, we can make all the laws we want, but we have to be in compliance with state law, and then we can tweak other things or put something in to enhance or take away. And I don't like a maybe law, because usually when they put in a maybe law, then what happens is, like so many mandates that come down to us, it winds up hurting us later, and you got to redo it. So due to the fact there is not a clarity on this and what is and is not in reference to the state law, we may need to look at this again before we make a final decision on this. And I don't have a problem with attempting to fold in Mayor Pro Tem Nick's comments, but I need to make sure and have a total clarity instead of, I think, or maybe, on the portion in reference to our state law.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Mayor, hold on. I said I was going to go to Mayor Pro Tem Nick, so.
The problem that exists here is that I'm trying to do something to help curtail a special influence, somewhat corruption, cronyism, and so forth. The excuse is that this is not being clear. You heard the city attorney say very clearly that this does not in any way, form, or shape affect, I repeat, this does not in any way, form, or shape affect Councilman Voigt's lobbying efforts. It does not. It's very, very clear to me. It does not. What it does affect is the ability of individuals in the future to come here and rob you, as some have done over the last 20 years, using this dais, using this position to advance their own personal agenda. The problem that exists is that our hearts, not all of us, our hearts are not in the right place. Mine is, definitely. And even if I were to give the benefit of the doubt to some of my colleagues, then the problem becomes the fact that it is against state law and federal law for this city to have an English literacy test before you can run for this elected position. Because to me, a 15-year-old student who is a good student in junior high can read this text and make perfect sense of it. There is no ambiguity here. This is written, there are no jargons. This is not a technical text. This is really, it reads like a novel. It is written for that in mind, that the average person can make sense of it. This is what the people of Irvine read and voted on. In fact, I think the state law requires that things like this be in an easy to format, in an easy to understand format. And as such, this definitely is easy to understand. There is no ambiguity in this. Don't let them tell you otherwise. Thank you.
Point of clarification.
Hold on one second. So I'm going to make you earn your pay tonight. So put you on the spot, but because Councilman Voigt says he's had some legitimate concerns about whether or not he'd be classified as a public official in that capacity, and so I just want to understand, does it need further clarification, or do you think that it is sufficient?
Mayor and Council, I hate to give you that was a yes or no answer. Let me tell you what I understand Councilmember Voigt's duties to be, because a lot of whether this exempts him or not depends on his job description. But I understand that he's an employee of the State Assembly, in particular a local representative of Assembly Member Wagner. And the concern, as I understand it, is that he might be called upon by his employer, i.e. Assemblymember Wagner in the state of California, to advocate on behalf of him before local agencies in Orange County. That would be the risk, and then if that were prohibited, I could see where that would be a huge problem. I think that if I understand those duties correctly, and I may not, that his doing that is as a public employee, which is covered and accepted here, and that his job duties, as I've described them, would include making those contacts and those communications on behalf of the assemblyman. So I think this is pretty clear. When it was discussed by the council last time, I assumed that it would cover his employment, and that was before the last section was amended or tinkered with. That said, I'd just like to express my empathy for an all-or-nothing, high-stakes proposition, and so I empathize with Mr. Voigt's concerns, but I think this is pretty clear that if he is employed to go advocate locally on behalf of the Assemblyman's office, that activity would be exempted here.
Okay.
I got a point of clarification.
Hold on one more second. So if we add too much to this, I mean, I don't know what your feeling is of trying to actually create an ordinance on the dais here rather than discussing and having it come back. And I'll let you respond to that. But if we were to fold into this as a friendly amendment to the substitute motion, something with much more specific language that would satisfy Councilman Voigt's, not that we're trying to specifically carve out something for him, but just people who work on behalf of the people in a government capacity, is that something that would make sense and something that we could try to put some language together with here to try to address that specific concern?
Mayor and Council, yes, if you want to get to wordsmithing it, you can. I think the part that is the most difficult to interpret is acting in his or her official capacity. If it exempted public officials or employees, that might be good enough, and that would certainly exempt the activities that Councilmember Voigt is concerned about.
Oh, okay.
My point of clarification.
Now go to...
we're all inundated in the state of California, in the United States, with a government that's out of control. More laws are being made, and so my actually, just as a friendly point of clarification, Mayor Pro Tem, what is the problem that you're trying to fix with this new ordinance? I mean, we have ordinance on the book, so if there's a problem that you're trying to fix, then what is it?
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, if you'd like to respond.
Over the years, you had people here who were lobbyists, who were attorneys, who were insurance salespeople, etc. I know for a fact they used their position, their council position, to bully people into hiring their services. I know for a fact they used their positions to bully others in the region, and this stops that. This stops me being able to sit here, enact laws or struck laws to line my own pocket. That's all there is to it. And if you think about it, if tens of thousands of people of Irvine pass this at the rate they did, 87%, when was the last time you ever saw something pass at 87% or fail at 87% for that matter?
Point of order. Point of order. Wait.
Point of order. I'm addressing what you said.
But a point of order. You threw out numbers. 87% of the people of Irvine none of us have that fact that was before us.
Okay.
So,
well,
it's
okay. We can debate that if we need to. So.
That is not the issue. The issue is not the 87% or whatnot. The issue is it's a good thing. It limits our ability, my own ability, to use my position to line my own pocket. It's as simple as that. And you heard time and time again, 3 times I think, Mr. Smith, the city attorney, said very clearly that this does not affect Mr. Voigt's ability to do what he wishes to do. So I don't see what the problem is. I honestly don't. There's no ambiguity here. The only person who speaks English as a second language, although it's the first language for me, it's me. If I can understand it, and Dr. Gardner is laughing in the background, but if I can understand it, any one of you should be able to understand it. I understand it, no problem.
Okay.
There's a motion, so let's take a vote.
Councilman Bass?
Yeah, I want to get back to this wording in here about, it says, for any private person. Person is defined, but this has the qualifier in front of it, meaning private. So it seems to me that being an employee of the state and working for assemblymen, that neither of those are private persons. Is that a correct interpretation?
Mayor and Council, that's right. I'm searching for the passage you're referring to, Council, just to be sure.
It's page 54 on this. It's section 2.18.103, and it's in the first sentence.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I think that qualifier also bolsters the argument that this would not apply to someone advocating on behalf of the public.
Yeah. I like.
And then the other thing, it seems to me, if there's going to be any changes to it, it needs to come back to the council. I mean, I hate, making law on the fly, and that's why they have this process for first and second reading, that if you have changes at second reading, you kind of start back again. And so I actually would like to see it written out, and it would have to be anyway. If the proposed changes are to be considered, it has to be written out for it to be back in a first reading. And so, unless we want to pass it as is, if we want to consider discussing these, including the changes, then that would come back. If not, then we just approve as written tonight.
Can I address that?
Yeah, hold on one second. That's what makes the most sense to me, because I think as we were talking about, the initiator of this particular change has mentioned that, at least from his perspective, there isn't a current problem. He sees a previous problem. So I don't know that there's haste to get it done tonight. I don't think that we need to have that. But I do respect the initiators wanting to get this done before it does become a problem. And, I think that just because there are some questions, it would make sense to try to take a look at that wording and give the people who do have some questions about particular vague parts of it the opportunity to get some answers beyond the city attorney. Not that they don't have respect for his opinion, but they might want to get a second one, or they might want to talk to an attorney themselves if they have one, or talk to some colleagues or whatever it might be, just to get clarification there. Not to slow down this process. I don't think any of us want to do that. I mean, we're prepared to approve this and make some changes tonight. Now there's some additional changes, and I think that it might make the most sense and might give us an opportunity to actually build some consensus around this rather than have some division. But again, there's a motion and a second, substitute motion, and I'm still opening it up for discussion here. You wanted to make a comment?
Thank you. I'm going to address both of you gentlemen. As far as there may not be a problem currently, this is not necessarily to address a current problem. This is, I am here for a limited amount of time. Unlike some of my colleagues, I do not intend to be here for 26 years. My job is to put in an infrastructure that future councils can build upon. So the fact that it's not a problem today doesn't mean there is no urgency. Again, I'm trying to do something to model so that future councils can easily refer to tonight this ordinance and many ordinances that I'm trying to pass, so that we will be in time that shining city on the hill that I promised a couple of years ago. Is it definitely pressing that we do it tonight? No. But time is the most scarce thing in life. It's even more scarce than money, and it's more scarce than health. But when tonight goes, tonight is gone. Number one. So that's as far as the urgency. Number two, again, there is no ambiguity here. Number three, we don't have to do anything. Tonight, what we're doing is simply taking the exceptions out. That'll be only the first reading. We still have 2 more weeks before we can finalize this. But I don't want to have 4 more weeks to finalize it. Tonight, let's take the first step Let's not put this off to another 2 weeks, from which we're going to take another 2 weeks. Tonight, we're going to take the first step. We're going to take the exceptions out. That will be the first reading of this ordinance. 2 weeks from now, something has come up. My colleagues have 2 weeks to understand this. If they're not happy, they can express their unhappiness 2 weeks from now in this very room, and we'll deal with it then. But that doesn't mean we should let tonight go. Tonight we can capitalize on tonight by having the first reading on this. That addresses everything that Mayor Robinson, my good friend to whom I look up, said. I tried to address all that. I totally forgot what you said, Dave. What was your concern? Oh, it was about the person, right? The private person?
Yeah, is whether the term private person essentially took care of the concerns that Councilmember Voights had relative.
Yes, okay.
And the second was the process in doing this. I don't even know if we can do a first reading tonight.
We can.
I mean, none of us have the stuff written in front of us or in any format. The public doesn't have.
Let me address that.
But, that's, for the city attorney.
Private person, Mr. Smith, the city attorney, already addressed it, so I'm not going to address it. Again, it does not eliminate Mr. Voight's ability to do as he has done over the years. As far as can we have this as the first reading, yes, we can. Number one. Number two, number three, so yes, we can have it as the first reading. And then number three is we actually have this in front of us. You said we don't. We actually have it in front of us, all of us. And the public has had it. The public has had the notice. We're just taking it out, and it's legal to do it this way. We're just taking out a couple of exceptions. It'll be the first reading. The public will have 2 weeks, and the council will also have 2 weeks to come back and express whatever concerns they may have. So it is kosher, it is legal. I've already checked with the city attorney.
Hold on.
And he did say something to that effect a few minutes ago.
Okay. Got a comment and question for the city attorney. So can we do a first reading up here? There have been some questions of whether we can or we can't. So.
Yeah, well, you have to know exactly what you're reading. But the motion is in order because it was to introduce, it wasn't to adopt, it was to introduce and to have first reading. The text that Mr. Nick and I read is before you, whether you're comfortable is another matter, but that would be an amendment to the subsection 2.18.103, and I could read that again if the council desired. The motion did not
I'd like to see it in
include.
writing for supporting clarification.
The motion didn't include any changes to subsection 2.
Okay. I think we all want to make sure that we're being fair with one another, we're being fair with the community when we're making decisions up here. In all fairness, I think the entire council was prepared to vote on the agenda item as it was. I think that the community was prepared. There are some changes that have been suggested. There are some concerns about some of those changes. It's just trying to understand it in my mind. And there was even one exception that was added. Am I correct? Just one exception that was added with respect to the conflict of interest part, right?
Right.
Okay. So certain individuals have thought through the specifics of this, and they've had time to do that because they were making those changes on the fly. But because of the Brown Act, they couldn't be communicating with the rest of us. You can only communicate with one other. And so now there's some concern about this. Again, it's not to try to delay it, belabor this or anything like that. I just think that if this is going to ultimately pass, and it seems like we're all in pretty much agreement that there's no current problem, but we want to make sure there isn't any problem in the future, absolutely, that it might make the most sense because there's a request to get it in writing. I just want to try to make sure that we can that we actually get something passed, right? So, I mean, we can take a vote tonight and it can fail. It can fail, but then we can look at this again in 2 or 4 weeks, and then it can pass. So, if we want to take a vote and go that route, that's fine. We may end up burning some bridges in the process, but and I apologize to the audience having to watch the sausage be made here, but it's just part of the issue. So, again, there's a motion, a second, substitute motion. I will second the substitute motion.
Point of order. Would you please have the substitute motion read to us?
I'll be happy to, Madam.
There's been a lot of talk. We need to know exactly what we're...
The city attorney wouldn't mind
We're
doing
voting
that,
on.
just so that everyone's completely
Thanks,
clear.
Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity. The substitute motion is to introduce and waive first reading of the ordinance as presented, except that subsection 2.18.103 would read as follows. Because of their uniquely important, visible, and elevated status and responsibility as office holders, an elected city official shall not engage in compensated employment or service for the purpose of lobbying for any private person before any local agency, Friends County, City, or Special District, close friends, located in Orange County. This section shall not apply to a person's lobbying. The rest of the text is stricken and replaced by, in the same manner as any other member of the general public to represent himself or herself on a matter which is related to his or her personal interests as permitted under the California Political Reform Act of 1974.
So what you're asking us to vote on now is the amended motion, the substitute motion that's amending, right?
Correct. Substitute motion takes precedent over the initial motion.
I know.
So, I know,
That's what I just
you
need
know
to
it
be
very
clear.
well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure it was
Absolutely.
clear.
So there's a substitute motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So this would mean that if we approve this tonight, it'll be second reading at the next meeting?
No.
Correct.
Okay.
Second reading at the next meeting.
So this would be the only meeting with an opportunity to discuss this. At next meeting, it's second reading and adoption, or we go through the same process again?
Same process. Just like tonight, we're in the second reading.
I'd like
No, I
to make a
understand that.
substitute motion. I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Oh,
Point of order.
wait. Let me finish. So, well,
Okay. All right. Hold on. So there's a motion, a substitute motion. We can't make a substitute motion on top of
Can
that,
make a
am I correct?
substitute motion. Yeah, you can. If I get a second.
Second.
It's the mayor's prerogative on that one. That's a parliamentary call.
Parliamentary, you can make up to 3 substitute motions unless you want to.
And the substitute motion goes first.
Okay. Substitute motion. What's your motion?
My motion is that, because I got it down here, so you basically want to take the whole first half of the paragraph out and then amend it with something else. I just think that we should I think to be good stewards, we've got to bring it back in the first reading and with it in writing for us all to see it. I think it's for the public. I think it's for us as lawmakers and representatives of the city to do right by the people. And I think we got to see it in writing. So if we want to change anything, then we can discuss it.
Mayor?
So
So I don't know what that motion was, Mr.
My
Voight.
motion
Is that
is
to continue that?
that we bring this back after you guys rewrite this and the way Mayor Pro Tem would like to write it. And then that way we can visibly see it, because I don't know what part of my highlight is not going to be in it or not in it. And what you're adding is, I didn't even add into this.
Okay, so would that be a motion to table? Would that
Bring it back.
Or it could be a motion to bring it back
Bring it back.
for introduction and first reading with
to
the...
try to
In what way, Mr. Smith, is that different from the first motion?
Oh, well, the first motion had this as first reading, an introduction. Mr. Voigt's motion would defer that until your next meeting,
All right.
where you would have the amended copy in front of you. Either motion's in order, though. We could implement it either way.
So there's a substitute motion, and I believe there was a second.
Yes, I second it. Mayor, I second it because I'm not comfortable with us wordsmithing up here. I'd like to see it in writing. I do read all of my paperwork, and I'd like to see it so I could mull it around in my head, give a call and get clarity or whatever, because sometimes even a 5th grader needs some clarity.
Okay, so there's a second substitute motion and a second. Any further discussion on that second substitute motion? All right, then I'll call for the vote on that second substitute motion, which was basically to bring this back with everything that we've talked about today in writing. Have we given you enough direction so that you feel like you could do that?
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. All right.
That would be first reading next meeting.
It would be
Yeah,
first reading.
next
Correct.
meeting.
So, council members, cast your votes. And that motion passes 4-1 with Mayor Pro Tem Nick dissenting. So just for clarification, would we expect that to come back to us in 2 weeks?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I don't think that'll be a problem
Okay.
at all.
All right.
Agenda item 14, contract award for newsletter printing and mailing, submitted by Deputy City Manager, Director of Management Services, and removed from the consent calendar by a member of the public, Paul McKinney.
Good evening. I'm Paul McKinney. I'm a resident of Lake Forest. I live in Lake Forest. We have a property and a business property and a business located here in Lake Forest.
Just a second. Mayor, it appears as though his mic is not on.
And maybe my voice is not on. I'm
Okay.
sorry. So we employ 8 people, full and part-time, here in the city. I want to discuss item 14. We have printed the city publication for over 10 years. The piece as it stands now, with some of the revisions that we've made, offered up to it. We also service over 10 other cities. We're an approved vendor for Orange County Fire Authority, the California Lottery, and Los Angeles Unified School District. We're certified as a small vendor to the state and approved vendor for many major corporations. We were awarded this contract 3 years ago, and the city has chose not to renew it. They went out to bid. The contract has 2 one-year renewal capabilities inside of the contract, and they opted to go out to bid after the 3-year term was done. So it's gone out for bid. I was told by the city employees that they're very happy with what we've done. They like the service. They like everything that we bring to the mix. We've gone kind of above and beyond weekends, evenings, to keep tight deadlines to make sure the publication goes out as promised and when needed. It's a complicated project. There's a lot of different moving bits and pieces to it, and when the bid went out, I was concerned that it was properly communicated to those wishing to bid the process. There was some back and forth and some different communication to try to help the city get down to what was actually needed. There's a couple of things, 3 things basically I'd like to ask is that first, the city revisit those numbers with accounting and with people who collected the bids. Ideally, I'd like to see the city take advantage of the 1-year continuation on the contract with the PM Group, our company. We'd love to do that. And then the final thing that I'd ask the city council to do is to put together a preference for local businesses. If they're competent and capable and competitively priced, I'd like to see them have a bid preference in this process. So that's essentially what I had to request.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other public comments?
We've had no further requests.
Okay. I'll bring it back to council, and the staff, I'll go to the staff to respond to any of those comments that might have been made.
Mr. Members of the City Council, this is a process that the council approved at a previous meeting in which it was the contract was formulated as a bid, and in that process versus a proposal, The specific requirements would be that the contract would be awarded to the lowest responsive bidder, much like we do for public works projects and issues of that nature. And consequently, the process, I believe, was well articulated in the staff report as to the outcome being that the other firm, Advantage, located in Anaheim, was actually the lowest responsible bidder in this instance. Consequently, staff's recommendation has been that based on approval of the bid package itself by council, that you in fact would award the contract to that firm. Your ability at this juncture to do something different, I would defer to the city attorney clearly at this juncture, but I think staff's articulated that fairly well. I think the evidence relative to that issue also is clear, but we'd be glad to respond to any other questions the council might have.
Great, thank you. And Mr. City Attorney, would you like to address any of those?
No, except that to do something other than the staff recommendation, the council would have to indicate against the judging criteria where it differed with the staff's conclusions or recommendations, and we just need to make that record.
Great, thank you. And bring it back to the council for any further discussion on the item.
Mayor?
Councilman Voights.
Is it, obviously, we're supposed to be good stewards of the people's money, but then, and we do have a track record with the PM group. Would we be able to take a final bid if he was willing to match?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I defer again to the city attorney, but I think you'd have to give that same option to the other firm as well in this process. You've created the process. You'd be violating the rules that you adopted and created. And at this juncture, I think it would be fundamentally unfair to the other firm. You'd have to reopen this entire process and make it a level playing ground, if that was possible at this juncture.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion, if there is one, or further discussion.
The bid process, and I've observed it over a number of years, provides for, and it's well understood and well used in the public sector. Sometimes it's might not be the best, but it is one that makes it a lot less possible for manipulation or collusion or anything like that, where they got to submit a sealed bid at a certain date and time it's opened, and you see what the prices are. I've been to some bid openings where there was 30 vendors there and on a construction project, and here the gas from those present is interesting to see what happens. But to turn this into then having firms the opportunity to come to a council meeting and propose a price other than what was given in their in the process would create a substantial number of issues and problems for council. I mean, where do you stop? Because we're a contract city, so a significant number of items are put out to bid, and it would just, it'd become an auction almost instead of a bid. I'm comfortable with the process that has been approved by the council. The city is several years ago approved by the council and been enhanced, and the analysis done by staff in this case.
Was that a motion?
With that, I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? Okay. Council members, cast your votes. that. Motion passes unanimously. And before we move on to the next item, I think that'll bring us to item 20. But I would like to let Mr. McKinney know we appreciate the service the PM has provided us, and it's been very high quality from what the staff report showed and from what we see in our mailboxes, and we very much appreciate it. Hope that in the future you'll continue to bid. I personally will take your comments to heart here, and especially with respect to local preference. There's been a lot of discussion about that. I think that some of the council members have some thoughts about that, what we can do about that. We'll have to see, but definitely appreciate your comments there. And again, hope that the next time this contract comes up that you bid again. And again, we've been very pleased with your service. So thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Agenda item 20, City Council consideration and possible action regarding the elimination of the city's share of sales tax on durable goods, submitted by Director of Finance, City Treasurer.
Mr. Members of the City Council, this item was requested by Mayor Pro Tem Nick and supported by Mayor Robinson. The staff has framed a preliminary amount of information by which we think the council could advance certainly a discussion this evening. We did not intend, nor is it an exhaustive analysis of all these issues. We did research what our relationship was with the Board of Equalization. That's the state agency that collects sales tax, and the council's ability to do that. As we've articulated in our staff report, the council does not have the ability to modify by some amount of reduction in the city's local share of property tax. You can't affect that rate at the point of sale. We certainly have provided you the information that we believe is pertinent to the request, and at this juncture have nothing further to add, but we'd be certainly open to any questions that the council might have.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
We've had no requests.
Okay, bring it back to the council. Councilman Hoyts.
Considering that this is totally unfeasible and outside of our realm, I'd like to make a motion that we table this. And
I will second that motion. It seems like, this is clearly in the purview of state legislature from what we're seeing. Doesn't mean that the idea wasn't a good one, just we're, I guess, preempted by the state yet again. So.
Actually, we're not quite preempted by the state. What Mr. Dunnick correctly said was that we cannot affect it at the point of sale. He did not say that we're preempted by the state in the sense that we cannot do anything about it. It'll be a matter of refunding those customers their share of taxes at a future time. And given that this is only on durable products, and we can define what we mean by durable products in this context, you can say any item over 10,000, any item over 20,000. How many cars does Mercedes-Benz or Footy Ranch sell every month or lease every month? 10, 20, 30? It won't be that much bookkeeping. If we were to do this on a $100 vacuum cleaner, it would be one thing. But when I introduced this, I said that I want to provide tax relief to the people of Lake Forest, and to those who would hopefully go out of their way to patronize Lake Forest businesses on durable products. Durable products, again, we can put a limit there. It'll make the bookkeeping quite feasible. And I think it'll generate sales. People would actually go out of their way. I know I would go out of my way to pick up a Mercedes-Benz at Footy Ranch Mercedes-Benz dealership than the one in Laguna Niguel or the one in Anaheim Hills. On a $50,000 car, 1% is worth the drive. I'm running out of energy here. These cookies are not helping. I keep putting up fights and I keep losing them. Besides that, again, this is premature. If we were to kill it at this point, we are killing something without us really knowing what it would have taken to actually implement this. There are cities in California who have foregone their portion of the sales tax, and they have seen hikes in their sales. I think it's a win-win situation, and nobody said we're going to do this permanently. We can do this on a trial basis. We can do it for 6 months. We can do it for 3 months. Basically, we can do it as often as quarterly. I don't have anything else to say.
Okay, so do you have a substitute motion? Do you have a better idea?
I make a substitute motion. I request that the staff come back with a more thorough analysis as to how we can go about implementing this if we were to implement it, because looking at what I'm looking at, it casts, maybe rightfully so, a negative light on this. It is not impossible. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. And other places have done it. Let's try it on a 6-month trial basis. If we don't like it, we won't do it. It doesn't produce the effect we think it will produce, then we'll abandon it. But at least, I think it's worth giving it a shot.
So the substitute motion is to have the staff come back with a more robust report. Is that
As to the feasibility or lack thereof.
okay? Any comments about that?
Nobody's seconding me.
I'm not supporting the motion, but I do have comments.
Okay. Well, I'll leave the substitute motion on the table right now, and if there are any further
It hasn't been
comments.
seconded.
I know it hasn't, but I'm just leaving it on the table.
Oh,
So.
for a second. Okay, there's a couple of things that when I seen this, I thought I was having flashbacks, because this was asked once before for our city. And our staff did do the homework and look all this up. And one of the cities here in our county that was doing it was Anaheim, and they're the one first brought it to a high and everything. And when they got through, I know several, at the time that this was going on, in fact, their Mayor Pro Tem, and a couple others that I know, they thought it was a really good idea, and it's going to bring business. Yes, they did bring a lot of business, but the amount of staff time, and as you know, staff time is money, that it cost them, and the amount of taxes that they gave up, it did not balance out. Yes, they had gotten, the dealers had gotten a boost. She really was doing a welfare system for the car dealers. They did it with car dealers. I don't remember what other things they did it with. And they ceased the program. Our city doesn't have as many car dealers or big ticket durable goods being sold here as some of the larger cities and some of the older cities in this county. Our city has taken on a lot of amenities, our sports park, a lot of different money. When the building in our cities that has already been approved, when that finished, we'll have our last big hunks of monies that will come into our city, and we're going to need to try to sustain ourselves on the same level that we have without taking and cutting things or getting in danger, as there's a few cities in this county that is in danger of taking and falling bankrupt. When we were up to Sacramento, there were several cities that announced their bankruptcy. So what monies that we get in now from our development fees, our building, that's going to have to last us for the duration of our city once we're a built-out city. So we need to, as we have done from the very first council up into present, we need to budget very well to give away tax monies when we still have different things here in our city that we are piecemealing and also planning in our capital improvement to get done, and still keep all the basic functions that you need to run a city to do, and make sure that our future is not shorted things are not going to go down, they'll probably go up some more. And with the economy like it is, we need to look at it. We have big businesses that they outgrow our city and they don't want to leave. And when they leave, those dollars have to go with them. We have three major ones that has left our city because they just couldn't grow anymore here. They brought us into good revenue. But Gateway, Western Digital, and one other, I can't remember their name off the top of my head. But the thing is, we have other business that may or may not leave because they have grown or either their business has shrunk. So when those dollars leave our community, that means that we've got to pull from some other place, possibly our general fund. Our general fund will not be growing. In fact, I have a little tease thing I do with Keith all the time. Find me some money, find me some money. I tease him all the time because we had a much better, larger reserve. But as we finish building our public amenities, those reserves deplete. So for us to give away tax money at this time, yes, we're coming up to finishing off our sports park, but it's got to be maintenance. We do sweep streets. We may can sweep less. All these things have to be paid for, including our different services, fire and police and other services, our staff. And we do run with a lean staff for the size of our city and how much we put out, and they do work and do double duties and things. So for me, at this time, I could not support a motion to give back money that we're going to take that type of a risk and in overtaxing our staff trying to track this stuff. Anaheim really didn't think it was going to be as incumbent as it was, and it was very incumbent and cost them money. So the ones that sold those vehicles, because they had, I remember the vehicles, I don't remember what other durable goods they had on that list. They made money, but the city did not. And so my problem is that you're also getting into a system that our country did a long time ago for big box places, and they wind up being dependent upon them, and some of them closed down when it went away because it was just keeping them going. So for me, because our staff has done their homework before on this issue, and it was brought before us before, and it was specifically brought before us for Mercedes-Benz and the other court thing they had left to try and save them. I would have to not support this because I feel that our city right now, with all the spending we're doing in doing our amenities, upgrading we've had a big thing of upgrading our park equipment and all this different stuff. And while we were doing all this stuff, our staff for a few years, they didn't even get raises, and they didn't get bonuses or nothing, and yet still he was doing 2 and 3 jobs at the same time and working. Some of them just literally donated time to us on their hour and without asking for one of our dollars. And there is other things that our citizens are asking. Go up there to Patola, in Patola. There is a traffic situation that's going to take some money to fix. There's all kinds of things around here that we fix it. There's somebody came up one time and says, stop adding more things, fix what we got. Well, we can't fix what we got if we're going to give back money. You know, our government has done that before, too. And what did they do? This state. And what did they do? And they played like the budget was fixed, and it wasn't. And then they took away our redevelopment money to try to fill up that big old hole that they had from all the money they had borrowed from the school district and hadn't paid back, and special district, and that they had squandered by taking and doing foolish stuff by giving back money because we got too much. So I think that we need to take a back seat on this and say, no, that's not what we're out to do. We're not going to set up another welfare system because the United States have one that has failed miserably, and it doesn't really help. It keeps people in poverty. If you want to take and do something, teach a person how to fish. Teach them how to take and work their business and make their business prosperous. And some is going to make it and some are not. But the thing is at this point, at another date, maybe, we could have swung it. But right now, until you can show me where some more money is, and I get on Keith about this all the time, until you can show me some more money, he keeps saying, you're not going to have that kind of money ever again while the city is existing. And with the federal government cutting back on things, like whoever was here for our block grant, they says, well, they didn't, we got a little extra. But if you check with the county and the state on block grant, you'll find out they are back there more concerned in it. they are going to be cutting it. A lot of our funds that's coming in are going to be being cut. So the thing is, I think that we need to put this on the back burner or wait or something, but I can't support it right now until I find out. Keith can tell me he hadn't found another pot of money that I tease him about all the time.
Okay. Got a question for the staff. What would it take from a staff perspective? I mean, I think the substitute motion is just a more robust report. In my mind, it's probably not going to change my initial conclusion looking at this, saying that it probably doesn't make sense. There are only certain things that we can do and we can't do, and depending on how significant it is, it could have an impact on the budget. I don't know exactly how much. So what would a more robust report entail for you from a staff perspective? Because that's really what we're talking about right now. We're not talking about actually making something happen. But
Mr. Members of the City Council, I think it really is a function of how broadly the council wants to cast this net. If you're talking about all durable goods, that's certainly more than vehicles. If you want to limit it to vehicles, that's a different issue. So the scope that you set will probably dictate the extent to which the staff would need to try and understand what we might contemplate to be the fiscal impact. I think the real problem is understanding, because the Board of Equalization does not collect information related to whether or not something is durable or not. So we'd be trying to define that. And we'd have to go out and talk to all the businesses and try and figure out with them what's durable, what's not durable, if you wanted to know the fiscal impact of what it is you'd be doing. If we're talking about, for a short period of time, all durable goods, this would be, I think, a significant undertaking by the staff, but also by the city, to try and create a system in which you would have all of the, I don't know who it would be, the businesses or the residents come in with receipts, and we'd have to figure out was that durable or not a durable good, depending on the definition the council might use. Now, we identified one in the staff report, but we're not really sure what the fiscal impact would be. And I think the issue for the council is understanding, first and foremost, well, what's the fiscal impact of what we're attempting to do? Because if you're talking about reducing your sales tax, then you're reducing the amount of money the city's going to have for the purposes of providing services. That said, if it was to stimulate the economy for a short period, it might do that, but you'll forego that amount of money during that time frame. Whether or not your budget could substantially weather that is another matter. Again, it's a function of whether it's temporary or how permanent it might be. You could certainly monitor it and see how much that reduction hurts over some period, I suppose. But this would not be a simple report, depending on what your expectation was and how much certainty you'd want to have about the impacts of what it is you'd be trying to do.
Okay. If looking for a second, which I'm assuming you're doing, making a substitute motion.
You did second me.
Yeah, well, sorry. Yeah, I did second you, so you're right. So, but getting back to the maker of the motion, I mean, how detailed would you be asking for that report to be? So, based on the comments you just heard from the city manager.
Durable products.
Because he was just saying it's very difficult to grab from the BOE what durable products are. If it were just like automobiles, that would be easier. If we're just durable products, then it's what's that definition? I think you even mentioned yourself something about I can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been a $100 toaster or something like that wasn't in your. But they might consider that to be a durable product. So I mean, we might need to give a little more clarification to the staff. Otherwise, they're not going to have any direction from us to know what to do.
I leave that to you, Mayor Robinson.
I appreciate that, but you made the motion, so unless you're withdrawing your substitute motion.
No, I'm not. Durable products, let's say things over $5,000. There can't be that many of them that get sold on a daily basis. And if I know anything about anything, it's about finance and taxation. By education and profession both, there cannot be that many items that are sold for over $5,000 a piece in Lake Forest. So the accounting will not be cumbersome.
Would that give you further clarification definition on how to go about this, or would you still have the same challenges?
I think we still have similar challenges. Try to understand the magnitude of what you're doing. We don't know what is being bought out there for $5,000 or more, so we'd have to create a system in which we were trying to find that out. If you were wanting us to project what we think the impact would be, if you're not interested in the impact of your decision, then it might be a little bit easier.
Mr. Dunnick, if we say automobiles, if I just say automobiles, let's say, maybe this question is equally for you, Mr. Smith. Would that be even legal? In other words, I don't think we can legally pick one industry and give them the preferred treatment, as they say, or can we?
Mr. Members of the Council, the experiment that was referred to earlier, I believe by Councilmember McCullough, was by the City of Anaheim, and it was related very specifically to a state program, federal program called Cash for Clunkers. And so it was used for a differently entire motivation, which was to eliminate older cars off the street. So the motivation was simply that. Consequently, the Anaheim program was only related to really old cars through that program, if you all recall, Cash for Clunkers. And we did talk with the Anaheim staff. It was very difficult. They weren't entirely sure whether or not what the receipts that they had and how it worked was even accurate. So what we already know by even talking with them is that your ability to project what this might mean to you is extremely difficult. And so if you wanted to limit it to vehicles, of course, we'd have a better understanding by looking at the sales tax receipts from the car dealers in this community to give you an idea, as long as it's not simply a part that they're selling, but a major vehicle. We might get a little better sense of the money you'd be foregoing out of your budget, because remember, your sales tax for next year is $13.5 million projected, so you'd be taking an amount of that away from yourself, remembering that your net income over expenses is about $600,000. So we'd want to be looking at whether or not the income and sales tax for vehicles from those dealerships is in excess of $600,000 on an annualized basis. If it is, you'd be creating a structural deficit in your budget. I can't recommend that you would ever do that.
But back to my question, would it be even legal if we were to consider a particular...
I'll defer to the city attorney. I assume what Anaheim did was legal, but I'll let him answer that question.
Thank you. A particular industry, whether it's auto or anything, just a particular industry.
Mayor and Council, the Council would have to explain a rationale for that distinction, but it would be subject to reasonable scrutiny and would be unlikely to be set aside. So the answer is, with the right findings, it would be legal.
It'll be unlikely for it to be set aside.
Right. I think it would be legal. You'd explain why you set the bar where you did,
right.
And I think you could do that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Mr. Lennon.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor.
Dave's got his hand.
Okay. Councilman
Question for City Manager Bob Dunnick. With respect, if it was only for vehicles, there are two auto dealers in town. My recollection is that with a small number of outlets, that the sales tax information is confidential. So it seems as though that would present a bit of a problem in that if it was only limited to automobiles, present a bit of a problem in identifying the fiscal impact on the city, unless you were to do it in some sort of broad range or something.
Mr. Members of the Council, we certainly could not divulge specific sales tax that relate to any one individual business, as Council is aware, and we cannot divulge it to an extent to which it would become apparent as to who it is. We'd have to explore that issue. I think Councilmember Bass raises a good question. The issue for us is to understand the category and what that is. It's not necessarily as vehicles that they're selling as taxable, but the issue, I think, is one we'd have to be very cognizant of, and our ability to forecast it and understand it may or may not be an item if Councilmember Bass's suggestion is one in which our consultants and our attorneys tell us we can't say it publicly, but we might know it privately, I guess is the point.
Councilman Boyd?
For point of information, staff has already put together item number 20 where we're on. How much staff time went into this, and how much staff time would have to go into it being itemized to just one item? And then who does the burden of proof fall on? Does it fall on the retailer to tell us what and they would have to calculate what is durable goods, and they would be the ones in charge of that, or would it fall back to our finance department?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think it would be a function of how we might devise such a program, but fundamentally, it's who you're trying to give the money back to, the dealership or the person who purchased the vehicle, and how you would verify that, in fact, they did that, and that they, in fact, paid the sales tax. So there's a process, but it would be a function of how we would try and structure that, I suppose. And what Anaheim did was to rebate the money to the dealership that were involved in that Cash for Clunkers program. And so without really spending the time to evaluate a rebate program, because we haven't done that yet, I'd be hesitant to try and project what we think that would be. I'd need to spend some time with staff trying to, I would say, formulate what we believe the work plan would be for such an effort. As it relates to what we've done in the past, I'd have to defer to Mr. Neves, and Carlos not here tonight. They were the principal authors of this in terms of approximately how much time they may have spent in developing the report that you see here this evening.
Probably anywhere from 15 to 20 hours, just calling, researching, getting a hold of the Board of Equalization, calling the City of Anaheim, getting the respective people. It was more hours, calling and researching, and then physically just sitting down and writing a report, waiting for responses, and so forth and so on like that.
On that same topic, was Cash for Clunkers was a federally subsidized payback program, correct? So
that's correct.
So they actually got subsidized for that. So what we'd be doing is paying it out of our own funds.
Mr. Members of the Council, you'd be needing to create a system that is post-sale. It would be a refund program, be administered by the city. You'd have to create a program in which you're actually spending money to give away money, and you'd want to calculate that into your costs to ensure that you understood the implications of the decision that you'd be making. But it would be totally a local program, and you'd be giving your sales tax back to whomever it was you decided you'd be doing.
I have another thing to ask you, City Manager, or whomever you want to refer it to. Also with this, the present substitute motion that is on the floor says 5,000 or up. Now, when you are formulating this, whether it's a car or whether it's something else, you can put bells and whistles and upgrade things and stuff. Also, you can take and get your whole house carpeted and be more than 5,000, or you can get all the sound windows on your home and it'd be over 5,000, depending on how many windows you have in your home, and things of this nature. Drapes, it can be over 5,000. Many things can be over 5,000. And in here, you did name a few doable goods, and you just didn't name all, but all of those is doable goods. If they're over if you're going to say 5,000, it's over 5,000. So with the motion that's on the floor, what you're saying 5,000, I can get just about anything, and then if I do upgrades on it or something of that nature, if I'm a little under, then I'll just do a few upgrades, and I'm going to be at 5,000, and I want my tax dollars. So, when we're asking for this to be filled, there is some models out there letting you know, but you got to realize our tax money, like we thought the redevelopment was going to be here forever. We're not sure-footed in our monies that the state at any time comes and take what they want. We still got some money that they need to pay us back that they haven't paid us back. We had a petition that was statewide. We won, and we still don't have our dollars. See, and they come and they take what they please. And if a city we had many of our cities getting ready to go bankrupt, and we did get some monies back from when we had our bankruptcy. But the thing is, if we take and we cut ourselves thin, and this city has some more money taken, or somebody come in with a frivolous lawsuit and win, it could put us in a hole. See? And we got cities right now in our county that is holding on by a thread. And guess what the county has said to them? Normally, when a city bankrupts, the county folds them back into the county. Well, guess what the county has said? We can't afford to fold you in. We got money problems ourselves. See? So then they stop paying things. One of these cities stopped paying the insurance, and they're struggling to take and find the insurance that they can afford to pay, because now their people don't have insurance. These are the workers in the city. So the thing is, and I'm not going to say which one it is because that would be embarrassing to them, because they're trying to figure out and work something out. But the thing is that you're saying that we're going to give back a portion of our sales tax. And if any major places that's high on our list, in that top 50 on our sales tax, if they're stolen away by some other city or another state, like some people doing, or anything like that, we're going to be financially solid. And anybody that spends $5,000, because you didn't put a limit on if it could be accumulated or one item, and they spend $5,000, they're going to get that sales tax back. Well, that's going to add up at the end of a year, 6 months, 3 months, or whatever. And right now, like I said earlier, the amenities that we have already in place, they need to be serviced. They still need maintenance. And then the new amenities we bring on, that sports park is going to need a lot of care to keep it in good shape. But we have set aside for that, and we're budgeted. Well, if you take your household budget and you budget a certain thing, and you decide to go out and buy some big ticket thing, and you're going to get the tax back, and then you don't have enough money and you lose your job, or you're off sick for a couple of months, you're going to feel that, and you could wind up homeless on the street. Some of my people that's homeless on the street, they didn't budget and they didn't prepare for the unexpected. One thing about this city that everyone should know, we've always prepared and been proactive for the unexpected. Out of all the cities that was caught up in Orange County bankruptcy, our city had $9.5 million in that bankruptcy. And if we had not gotten it back, this city would have still been solid. And the other cities in this county could not say that. Our city was still solid. So that's what you have to think about.
Any further discussion on the item?
Just a couple, in terms of sort of a working definition of durable goods, would this apply to business sales, where the goods, say some piece of machinery is sold by a business in Lake Forest, let's just say to another business in Lake Forest, would that apply?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm surprised you don't know that. Business to business, usually there is no tax consequence. Tax usually goes to the end user. So if business A purchases $5,000 item or a $10,000 item or a $50 item, for resale purposes, there is no taxation there. The taxation only triggers when the end user.
Yes, but if a business is the end user, doesn't purchase it for resale, but purchases it for end use, for their own use, then it is.
Absolutely, this is
and that's what I was referring to on the business to business.
Business to business, it's not really business to business. It's business is selling it to the end user. The end user happens to be a business, but yes, it would apply, because otherwise it would be unequal, it would be unfair. So the entity purchasing the item, irrespective of whether it's a corporation, whether it's an individual, whether it's a nonprofit organization, they should have the same benefit. In fact, I think if we have it differently, that may be against the law, because I think you need to treat everybody equally. So that was my response. Thank you. Great question. Thank you.
And then the other is, if you were to buy, kitchen cabinets or something like that, that would apply to the extent that it's over $5,000.
Yes, sir. And it's what Mrs. McCullough was saying actually doesn't hold true. It's basically one purchase. You cannot go buy something for $3,000 today and then buy an additional bells and whistles to it the following month for another $3,000, and then claim that you purchased $6,000. It's at the point of purchase.
Excuse me, Mayor, I didn't make that statement.
I apologize.
My statement-
I misunderstood you then. I apologize.
You misunderstood me. Thank
I
you, sir.
apologize.
Okay. Speaking of some of those items that have popped up, I think that is also explaining it would be incredibly difficult for the staff to try to figure out when you're just talking about automobiles, large pieces of equipment, things like that, it's one thing. Once we start talking about things like carpet, kitchen cabinets, then, I think it becomes incredibly difficult. But, if you're still interested in having the staff do a further report, I've seconded your motion. So I think I preface my second, and my position still stands. I think that this is going to be incredibly difficult to actually accomplish. But if you want to go through the exercise of trying to figure out how that may happen, I'd be supportive of that. I think Mr. Neves has already explained they've put in 15 to 20 hours into just what we have right now. So there's going to be some multiple of that to do a more robust report. But if that helps us better take a look at this issue for the long term and understand what may or may not make sense, I've seconded the motion. So.
Thank you. If I could beg of you, let's go and take a vote on it so we can move forward.
Well, I'm just going to let any further discussion ensue
Yes,
here.
after the vote, could we have a needs of necessity, please?
Absolutely. I think we just have one more item, but I can appreciate that you still need to take a break. So any further discussion? Okay, so we're at the secondary motion that would be to give to have the staff give a more robust report back to us, specifically with items of $5,000 or more. I don't know how challenging or difficult that's going to be. We've already talked about that a little bit, but before we take the vote, if you want to make any further comments, Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Members of the Council, I would suggest that if that motion passes, that the staff would need to conceptualize what we think the work plan would be for this, maybe bring it back to the Council at some point, but I can't guarantee how quickly all of that would occur. So I hope your expectation is that it does not come back like really soon, and particularly if we do it in a phased fashion. But understanding where that might go, we'll be certainly more than willing, obviously, to follow Council's direction and do what you need us to do.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
So
Call for the vote?
if there's no further discussion, then I'll call for the vote on the secondary motion there, or the substitute motion, I should say. The item fails 2-3. So that brings us to the initial motion, which I think was just more of a receive and file. Is that fair to characterize it?
The specific motion was to table,
Okay.
which in effect is receive and file.
Okay. All right, so we'll take a vote on that particular motion. And that passes 4-1 with Mayor Pro Tem Nick in dissent. And we're going to take a 5-minute recess, then we'll get to this item 21. So I'm going to keep it to 5 minutes as much as possible here, because we're just about done.
We just need to come through here.
Thanks for your help on that.
My contract, I got stressed. When I go to
But I used to do driveways in concrete, so that's how I did talk. So I am very interested in it because, you know, we value your investment in the city. And I assure you, this understanding, putting money into it, and this would be a presentable and making it more awesome. Dave, you can do it.
Okay, we'll come back to item 21, and we're just about out of here. So, and I will let the record show that Councilwoman McCullough was back in well more than 5 minutes. It was my own delay.
Agenda item 21, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lake Forest, California, adding Chapter 3.03 to the Lake Forest Municipal Code requiring a supermajority vote for the adoption or increase of taxes, assessments, and fees, submitted by City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'll defer to the city attorney since this is his item and he crafted the ordinance.
Mayor and council, at its meeting on June 3rd, 2014, the council approved this ordinance conceptually and asked us to bring back the appropriate enactment to make it official. That's what's before you tonight as item number 21. There were two main tasks involved. You considered at the meeting on June 3rd a matrix of all the taxes, fees, and charges that the council might participate in adopting or increase. And what we did is took those and categorized them into the definitions portion of this ordinance. That's all in 3.03.030. The next thing we needed to consider was how to make this ordinance preeminent above all other policies, resolutions, or ordinances of the city to make sure that it was clear that this superseded all prior enactments. And we determined that the way to do that would be to add a chapter to the beginning of the municipal code section, to the beginning of the municipal code title on city finance. So before you tonight is an ordinance adopting a new chapter 3.03 to the city's municipal code that requires a supermajority for the council's adoption or increases in taxes or fees. It's here for your introduction and first reading.
Great, thank you. Any public comment on the item?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, bring it back to council. I'll just move that we approve the item.
I second that.
Motion and a second.
Call the vote.
Discussion. Cast your votes.
We have to have a discussion. And raise my hand.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. I apologize.
I know you do. The only thing in reading this, I didn't see something that we had a problem with after the Bell thing. I didn't see a procedure laid out for if there is a problem where we have only 3, then what we would do. I didn't see that wrote in here to cover that. That's what I didn't find. If I missed it, you point it out to me.
I'm sorry, Councilmember McCall, you're talking about three of what?
Once you make a supermajority, you have to have 4/5.
Right.
That's 4 people. If you remember in the Bell situation, a lot of cities fixed that because they were down to one man, one person. And there are things that come down from the state that we have to adopt in. We don't have the jurisdiction or the whereabouts to say no when it's state mandated to adopt this. It's been passed on an initiative or statewide. Many of us cities put things in place where if or somebody could get ill and somebody be absent and stuff, and there's something that needs to be passed, what you don't have a provision in here to take care of that.
If I could, Mayor and Council, I do remember, Councilmember McCall, you raised that issue last time, and we specifically addressed it. I'll point you to 3.03.040, where it describes the denominator of the 4/5 vote as the total membership of the City Council.
That's present.
No, it's how many people how many council members are in office at the time. So if 3 of you are in office, 2 seats are vacant, you'd need 4/5 of the 3. If someone is out of town or they have a conflict of interest or they just don't want to vote, they count as part of the denominator. So you look at the total number of council members seated and then need to get a 4/5 vote of that number.
You're going to get a 4/5 out of 3?
You need all 3 out of 3 in that
Okay,
case, yeah.
so that's what you basically were saying. All 3 would have to vote because you can't get a 4 out of a 3.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, cast your votes. Are you missing one? Oh, sorry.
I need to ask one more thing. Okay.
No, has not.
No, I haven't cast my vote as of yet. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Make sure I'm comfortable with my vote. We already have it where it's 3 people. You need 3 people to vote at all times. So this is going to be where you always need at least 4 to be and vote the same thing, right?
That's right.
I don't see how that's going to help something one way or another, but if that's something y'all want to do.
Item passed unanimously. Brings us to City Manager's report.
The staff has nothing further this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Councilman Bass?
Yes, first item is I'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. That would be a Happy New Fiscal Year. July 1, Keith was the only one who probably understood that one, but July 1 is the start of the city's fiscal year. So couldn't resist pointing that out since this is the first. And then, of course, on the 4th is the country's holiday as we celebrate it and gather with family and friends. Just take a little time to ponder and think about those who helped create this great country more than 200 years ago. And with that, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and safe 4th of July, and that's all my comments.
Great, thanks. Councilwoman McCullough?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to report my 1234s, League of California Cities, and Orange County COG, Orange County Fire Authority. We had ribbon cutting. One was here in our city, and we had one in Laguna Hills that has joined our chamber. Our chamber do an excellent job of getting all about. They do such a good job that other cities people want to come in. They don't have a chamber over there, and they said, let's join Lake Forest. They're doing excellent. We had another Relay for Life out in Foothill Ranch. As you know, we had one on this end of the city, and I was very honored to be able to walk in that. I only walked the 10 laps this time because after that, there's right there in Saddleback, they had Saddleback Hospital opened up a cancer center there, right there by it, in the building. I forgot what that building used to be, but it's on the same lot with their F&M there. And we had a concert in the park that was well attended. They always do such an excellent job. I don't know if you've ever went. If you haven't, you need to try it and go to the next one, and you're going to get blown out of your socks. We do some darn good concerts. And the other thing is, I don't know if some of you may have not been here at our last meeting. There, this is election time. I have a friend that always say this is silly season. Everybody go crazy when it's election time, and they find ways of trying to discredit who they don't like or to help get in who they do want. And they do a lot of things. A lot of people that are trying to get re-elected, they do a lot of things. So one of the things, I just try and take one thing each time as they come up with the stupid stuff. And one of the things is they said, I'm driving around in limousines and flashing my husband's limousine. I gave my fellow consuls the name and the number for the executive car that we take, that we would take when Councilmember Rudolph was on, we'd halfen it. But when there's someone else, they take as many people in the car as needed. And when you're trying to catch that plane so you won't miss that last plane back to Orange County, you try and hitch a ride with whomever, because the shuttles, even if you ordered it and you have the round trip, sometime they get out before you and they flood in there, and you got to wait for another shuttle, and you can lose your ride. Plus, getting in and out of them, you need a lot of help when you got bad backs or bad knees or bad arms or anything. So our staff here was fortunate enough to find a group that they're not limousines. Some are owned by limousine companies, but there's a service where they bring a town car or a mini van that's low enough for you can get in and out. I've gotten 2 concussions off of the shuttle service before. When I'm tall and you forget the little thing up there, and I banged my head in the front and the back and got double concussion. But in that, it's a flat price. And on that flat price, guess what? The tip is included. But if the person do something exceptional, you can still tip them. And that flat price runs better and gets you to where you need to go, and it's less than most shuttles. The shuttles keep going up and up. That flat price is across the board. So I brought the phone number, and any of you that want this, you can call the company and find out. They don't send a limousine. They send a town car or a minivan that's low. So we'll just look at these supposed to be trues one at a time. And all the places I go in Sacramento, I talk to them when I was up there, and I can give you their numbers too, and they can verify what I do and do not eat and what I do and do not drink. Thank you.
Councilman Voights?
I too attended the Relay for Life Foothill Ranch. It was well attended. About a month ago, we had the Relay for Life Lake Forest, and that was our original Relay for Life. And I think that the service that they do in education and awareness and support of those that are fighting cancer is something to be esteemed. Every one of us in our lifetime will know someone who passes away or is battling cancer, and I think that there's a lot to do with how early a detection it is, so as whether you can beat that battle. So they do a wonderful job in the Relay for Life, and the passionate people that are there involved with that, I've got to commend them. So I was honored to be at the Foothill Ranch one. I attended the ACC, the Association of California Cities Orange County Golden Hub Awards this last week, and it basically it takes the 30 cities that are involved with the Association of California Cities, and they put forth innovative ways that they're saving taxpayers money or shortening planning time for new businesses, and some of the ideas that we got there were just remarkable. I was there with Mayor Robinson and many other council members throughout the city, and one of the things that has been a big topic in all the cities in Orange County is how long it takes to get your plans approved and get your business up and going, because obviously that means time is money. And what is our time? Because I'm hearing mixed reviews on our city, and so I don't need it now, but maybe if the next council meeting you could bring that numbers back to me, because I've got mixed reviews out there of what the time is, and I know there's some new qualifications for water runoff and where's water going, but the fact is we've got outside counsel or consultants that are supposed to be helping us with that, and it's still taking an enormous amount of time. So I'd like to check with that. So I'll further that with Bob after the meeting. But then someone brought up the animal control. I'd like to have to talk to staff about, is it possible for us to go to Mission Viejo Animal Control or Irvine Animal Control? Is that a feasible possibility? Because the rates that now are being charged by Orange County are high, and I just want to know if that's something that we could look into feasibly. So
Mr. Members of the Council, I believe that's the direction of the Council. Certainly staff could look at anything. That issue's been researched several times in the past. It's never produced anything of positive nature, but if the Council would like us to look at it again, I'd be looking that there's some direction from you for us to do that.
Would you be amiable to looking at the previous staff reports?
Yeah, that would be fine. I just never been privileged to that, so I just my whole question was, it wasn't asking for consensus, but I just wondered if the feasibility. So nothing more than that. That would be fine.
So maybe in our weekly mail, just get
that'd be fine.
Those
that would be
reports
fine.
rather than doing something new.
All right. And U.S. Davis report.
I believe Councilmember McCullough is talking about a study that we had done for about animal shelters that was done by the School of Veterinary Science at UC Davis that evaluated the Orange County Animal Shelter on our behalf.
That's before my time. Yep. Okay. And then I'd like to wish everybody a happy Independence Day. May everybody be safe, and may we think about the blessings we have here in America. So thank you. Nothing further.
Mayor Pro Tem Nick.
Well, we could have been out of here about an hour ago if we were all more efficient with our monologues. I'm going to do my part. I'll be very quick. Thank you all for being here tonight. I also thank those who were here but had to leave. I thank the staff. I thank my colleagues to my right and left. I wish you the best of holidays, the best of forts, and may God bless America. Thank you.
And just for my own comments, any extended length of the meeting is really my responsibility, so I apologize to those who had to put up with us this evening. Hopefully we managed to get some things accomplished. I would like to ask for consensus or ask for one other council member to support me to bring up discussing access to email and also...
I second that.
So access to our city email, a direct access, as well as a discussion on the whole policy with respect to written correspondence. I think it's a good topic to have again. So no rush with that. Doesn't have, whatever fits into the schedule there. So other than that, wish all of you a good evening, and I'll adjourn the meeting.